Christopher Peter Review is made for me and you. An economic perspective, completely objective. The Review, for the way you see the world.
Welcome. There is always a natural urge to require more of others than we do of ourselves. And this is generally true for most people when you compare their words and espoused values with their routine behaviors and attitudes. The standards are conveniently shifted depending on the direction we are looking at. I believe it is part of our human nature to automatically create excuses for our own shortcomings, like the behaviors, sayings, or attitudes are not representative of ourselves, despite the potential frequency of the occurrence. Most people are not able to accept, let alone see their own flaws, no matter how much they speak about self-awareness. But for others, especially people they do not like, they will hold any moment, even a misperception, as an irrefutable and undeniable example of their flaw as a human being. Every mistake is evidence of why that person should be kept in lower esteem than others. Regardless of one's demographics, they all take the same approach, just using different standards to weigh against. The reality that we must accept in life is that no one is perfect, and the vast majority of people are not trying to be rude, offensive, or contrary to your standards. They are simply trying to make it through their day in the best manner they know how, and may not always consider how something they say or do is perceived outwardly. We all expect to be forgiven, but we should also be willing to forgive when appropriate. Following this time period, which is very important to many religions, we should be slower to judge each other in the negative. For Christians, we just celebrated a little over a week ago the greatest sacrifice made in world history, during which forgiveness was still able to be shown. Many question why we are in a society where more people each and every day are struggling to be comfortable in their own skin, accepting themselves as a person that should be valued and being able to do the same for others. Too many people are quick to offer their opinions but short on the fortitude to actually provide any meaningful help to others. We all can learn to be more forgiving and less judgmental. We all do it. Even if we do not verbalize it, we should just try to be better to each other. Then we can at the very least do our part to make our communities a better place to live, work, and raise our families in. And we can also do better to not internalize the opinions of others, which are just curtains for what is not going right inside their own lives. There was much social media buzz around a publicity stunt by McDonald's chief executive for taking what was perceived as not a big enough bite of the new premium sandwich that is being offered by the world's largest fast food chain, the Big Arch. Maybe it was to try to emphasize the size, or just simply he is not a major consumer of the products he peddles to the public. Personally, I tried the Big Arch twice and it was very good for a fast food burger. Would be something I would try again if they made it a staple of their menu. And the hot honey chicken sandwich was pretty good as well, showing hope that the chain can create products that supplement their menu in a positive manner. Still holding hope that they bring back the Big and Tasty using the original Big and Tasty shaped burger. Nonetheless, the situation showed just how McDonald's is the market leader and drives the conversation of the marketplace. Rival chief executives wanted to exploit the attention to try to spark interest into their own lagging chains, which is something secondary brands riding coattails of a more dominant brand do. McDonald's is the clear market leader not just in sales, but in the mental market of consumers looking for a quick bite. Now, I said that the Big Arch is a good burger for a fast food burger. It may be a great burger for a food burger, but the reality is that the best place to get a burger is not a fast food chain. There are many local burger joints, local bars or pubs, or specialty places that make outstanding unique burgers that far outweigh the quality of a fast food chain. McDonald's is not marketing the best burger on the market. That is not their niche. What McDonald's truly markets to the general consumers of quick and fast meals is the experience built on generational culture. What I mean by that is every person has a memorable experience at McDonald's and occasionally wants to relive that moment with family, friends, or the next generation. We all remember as kids getting a Happy Meal and being excited about what toy or prize was in the box. The meal was secondary to the excitement of what came with it. Many people connect with the smell of their fries, the taste of the sauces for their chicken nuggets, and having a bun in between two burgers with a sauce that people know what it may be made from, but pretend like we cannot figure it out. Even when we may have a moment of bad service or a mistake, we still go back. Maybe not frequently, but we do, even just for a late-night snack of fries or nuggets. When they make slight changes to a historical staple, we always have to try it. When they came out with the Chicken Big Mac, many friends I knew who had not had fast food in years tried it because there was a curiosity that they had to satisfy. It was worth the trip. Same with the pandemic favorite of the Double Big Mac. There are many people who complain about the McRib but will buy it every time it is available. For a while it was a local tradition for a group of friends to catch up during the limited run, grab a McRib and then do it again a year later. I am not sure there are many people who do the same for Burger King, Wendy's, or Taco Bell. Those chains do not really have the same connection. So, when considering a brand for the CRC fund, I have to look not just for strong financials in their industry and overall, but factors beyond the numbers. In many ways, McDonald's is the strongest brand amongst the fast food companies centered around affordable, or semi-affordable, burgers and fries. And it is widely available. Consider when you go to a new place or simply traveling on a road trip. You may not always know the food places and where they are located. Maybe you have meals planned out. But for those unplanned or immediate needs, there is nothing like seeing those golden arches. At the very least, it is a place for a quick meal that you are generally familiar with, not an inconvenience for stopping. During my recent trips, I have always noticed that you will always find McDonald's busy, but not so much the other competing chains. In areas that are housing tourists with families, the preferences will lean towards McDonald's over the less family-friendly chains. The Happy Meals are a much bigger draw than anything the competition has when you have a hungry family with kids that have been in a car too long. So it is not surprising that McDonald's is the only chain in this space that is experiencing stable growth. Burger King is struggling and may have found some recent stability, but Wendy's has seen better days. And Taco Bell is stagnant a bit, it seems. Their novelties have worn off and the marketing is constantly just grifting off of the competition rather than anything truly innovative and unique to their offerings. From my economic perspective, McDonald's is a solid pick for our fund tracker and to track its growth. Again, we are not giving financial advice, just giving insight on brands and their performance.
A brand does not always have to produce the best product or service to be a market leader. Generally, it just needs to provide something good enough or perceived positively by the general consumer while being easily accessible to the buyers. And that is what McDonald's is for many people who are in need of a fast meal that meets the need of the moment. Regardless of where you are in the United States, you are going to be relatively close to a McDonald's. And we know that fast food is not generally healthy for you and should not be a daily practice. But there are moments when you need a meal quickly and are not able to wait 15 to 20 minutes for tableside service plus the time to find a location and review its menu. Or sometimes, you are simply out late and want something quick. So McDonald's fits a specific need for a specific time for many people. Even the most health-conscious person may choose their local McDonald's as a cheat meal or a quick breakfast to fuel before hitting the gym. That is the main thing they have over the competition, is the breakfast is far superior to anyone in that market space. So they have major competition advantages is the overall generational experience, extreme convenience, and dominance in the breakfast market for fast food. When you have competitive advantages that are meaningful and clear to the consumer, you will see those impact the company's bottom line and their financial performance. Especially when it is sustainable. Are there things that McDonald's could do better? It can be healthier. At the same time, its consumers have more information about its nutrition than you have on many local establishments or competing chains that are not under as much scrutiny at times. Sure, but it meets the needs of the market and is able to connect with a broad array of consumers that will come in and out of the market at various times. Their reach and brand awareness is what you want for a franchise-based establishment, where it actually operates as a real estate company relying on franchisors to operate the food delivery aspect.
Let us talk about the military conflict that was supposed to be done in 2 weeks, then a 2-week ceasefire was put in place. So, it is kind of confusing to understand what the situation actually is. What is clear is that the economy is going to have to deal with issues resulting from the conflict and, more importantly, the uncertainty that surrounds it. There is or was a brief time out in the hostility in this conflict with Iran, but one can expect the operations to continue again, following a weekend where there was reportedly not enough progress to reach a deal that would end the engagement beyond the 2-week ceasefire. Not really a ceasefire, as expected. Iran was not really living up to their promises. As a result, there is now a blockade on the Strait of Hormuz, and conflicting reports of whether anti-mining passes were actually done. Although there being reports of Iranian radioing and complaining about them shows that their denying it happened was another lie put out there by the rogue regime. But that is somewhat expected in the politics of global conflicts. Not helpful though.
The area that I think many people have is not just the lack of honesty about what is going on. To some degree, you can understand that the people who now bear the burden of leading a rogue nation that has seen a great deal of its military capabilities destroyed, its organizational chart executed, and now have to maintain some level of governance to avoid being executed themselves potentially. The part I take issue with is the level of cooperation to platform the misinformation by some media outlets and some former journalists who are now ideological voices spewing information that can also be considered misinformation. For example, Tucker Carlson makes an incredulous claim of President Trump being a slave to Israel. During the follow-up question, he plays the naive card, making it appear like the host is making an assumption, drawing her own conclusions, when it was his words that were the problem. She should have followed up and asked for evidence to back up his claim. Not his feelings, but actual evidence that could corroborate his view. And many news outlets have been all too eager to put out headlines that seem to platform the misleading information and propaganda from Iran because they hope to draw out a negative response towards the president they dislike. But, as we have always said, politics should not be just about the person. It should be about the policy. I think it is fair to question a president who claims to be completely opposed to war that approves an operation that could lead to a path of a prolonged conflict. But I think we cannot pretend like there is no justification. That is not an honest take.
Like many Americans, I too do not want our soldiers placed at risks for interests that do not directly impact the United States of America. In this case, I believe there is a legitimate justification to proceed with the operation, as there was a near-term threat of a nuclear rogue regime that would do everything it could to harm our military installments in the region, our allies, and our economic interests. The leading sponsor of terrorism in the world is the rogue nation of Iran. They have been responsible for hundreds of thousands of deaths in the region, including thousands of Americans, their own people, and our allies. They have been a known problem that has been mishandled for many years, with any success of isolation wiped out by the Obama shift to granting billions of dollars in aid without any meaningful benchmarks. There cannot be any reasonable deal with Iran, led by people who are unreasonable, dishonest, and evil, without securing the nuclear material and a full commitment against nuclear proliferation. Their statements tell you that they intend to remain a threat, rather than being a partner in the global economy, as an exporter of energy and peaceful participant in the global market economy. They prefer to be the market leader in terrorism. We need to complete the mission and not declare victory early. We made that mistake before. Our military has done a wonderful job in succeeding in such a short period decimating the enemy, but they still are a threat. We have to commit to finishing what we started without being drawn into another decade-long conflict. In this case, we know they have nuclear material. They have admitted to having nuclear material, way more than expected, and they continue to refuse to turn away, even having the gall to ask for the international community to look the other way and remove any inspections and inspectors, ones who they have been reportedly manipulating. The challenge is to prevent any further escalation and infusion of material and information from outsiders like Russia and China, who would probably be eager to not lose another member of their axis, like they did in Venezuela, while seeing Cuba fall into chaos at the moment as well. Russia is bogged down in Ukraine and losing ground. China is facing economic strife, but needs Iranian oil.
I think it will be hard to expect our allies to step up to the plate. They will use recent tensions with the tariffs, the calls for them to honor their NATO commitments, and comments about them as excuses to stay on the sidelines. Also, they simply may not be capable of any assistance of any kind. Both could be right. Every nation in NATO understood the threat that Iran is and could be. Every nation knows that keeping Iran away from nuclear weapons is not just one nation's goal, but for every democracy and free nation. They are a threat to our interests, our allies, and to freedom in the region. They have brutally thousands of their own people. The only ally that has stepped up to the plate to do what is right has been Israel. Let us remind all these individuals that are advancing the narrative that Israel is causing war across the region. That Israel was the victim of a horrendous terrorist attack. As a result, it held the responsible parties accountable. And they should participate in the effort to keep its biggest threat from being able to accomplish its goal of ending Israel. Too many people have idiotic sympathy for the party that causes their own downfall when they are being held accountable. Well, mostly just the progressive left and the anti-Semites. They replace facts with their imaginary conceptions. And hopefully those nations that are supposedly backers of peace, freedom, and democracy do not cloud their judgment with what is the actual right and sympathy for the bad actors.
Finally, to be fair, we need to not make it easy for opponents to oppose what should be a reasonably acceptable and understandable objective that rational people knew should have been done years if not decades ago. I am surprised at the Americans who are willing to look at the situation and purposefully see defeat where there is clearly near victory. At this moment, The world is better off than it was with a rogue nation on the brink of a nuclear weapon, despite the recent challenges that will need to be navigated, in spite of the economic challenges that will be experienced in the short term. I agree to some level that some of the rhetoric is a bit much. We do not need to claim that ending a civilization is the approach to take, especially when our enemy has been reportedly devastated in a relatively short period, in a historically brief period of time from initial engagement to the point where we seem to have a clear advantage. There are some who will call out the unpredictable approach as a plus, where our enemies cannot forecast what our next moves will be or our response could be. At the same time, a level of predictability can help people understand there are consequences to bad behavior, and America will not be extorted by evildoers. Past public policy that only embolden the rogue leaders will not be made again. I think in matters that involve military engagements, I think there could be some stepping back of the rhetoric a bit. Now, I am not taking the view of some of the left wing and drawing conclusions that fit their political narratives. From a practical standpoint, I think it is helpful that people understand the path forward from a high level. We understand the situation on the ground will dictate tactics used or overall strategy. That is something we have become accustomed to in the past. Back then, Americans wanted to make sure that there was a clear overall direction and that the messaging to the American public was consistent. I think there can be a balance. Sometimes you have to send messages to cajole actions towards preferred behaviors, but I do not think that making catastrophic claims are necessary, especially if you want the public to not doubt the progress made. Obviously, there were some should have been anticipated outcomes like inadvertently giving our enemy control over a key waterway. There are natural questions when you tell Americans that the war will end in 2 to 6 weeks. It does not appear like that is possible at this point, and the tide of public opinion will also change if American ground troops need to be involved. If we have won and are winning, then the case for troops would be a hard sell. In the midst of the tension, I do think we have to give credit that there has been some efforts to negotiate and give them an out on our terms, which the remaining individuals should take if they are smart. Hopefully we can secure the nuclear material and only then help Iran become a member of the global community and economy.
It is hard to not have a different view over the coverage of a rumored trade of our star wide receiver when the main voice that was breaking the twists and turns of the day-to-day events is closer than probably appropriate to the perceived benefactor of the trade. Now, so many people have spoken about the pictures and the fallout. But the situation indirectly involved our Eagles, where what may appear as questionable reporting in light of everything created a local stir that may not be based on journalism, rather by loyalty to a friend. Close friend. A closeness that may blind objectivity. Of course, it could just be a coincidence that both reporting and the controversial situation occurred. Now, independent of the reporting, the actions by the Eagles lately make a trade appear likely. They have stated they do not want to let great players go. But they seem to be doing a lot to bolster the offense in the event we do have to let a great player leave via trade. It will not negatively impact this season. So, the rumor mill may not be completely a rumor. I do like the fact that our questions around it are being answered somewhat. Losing a player like Brown would leave a major hole. But having a more balanced and deeper offensive roster may be a better path forward with our new approach to offense in Philly. Our best offensive performance was a game where we only had one of our stars out there, albeit against a young and injured opponent. But maybe less can be more. Especially if there is less drama and non-football related storylines around our team. For the overall story of the Diana Rossini scandal, the only aspects we concerned ourselves with were the impact on our Eagles. But also, the impact it will have on journalism, which is no longer the irrefutable gold standard of information. There are great journalists, Rossini has always appeared to be one of them, but you cannot have any concern circling around you because of the nature of the business. And we have seen many journalists give up credibility to advance political narratives or their own personal agendas at the sake of their platform, which is really owned by their media company employer. In the environment where anonymous sources are used, then the burden of believability resides solely on the credibility of the person creating the content. People can be simply wrong, but they could also be purposefully unscrupulous. So your reputation matters way more in this field than most other fields. Interestingly, there may be people more willing to be sources now that they know they can deflect blame for any pushback if they become exposed. That is another risk. The situation may not be as bad as it appears, but resigning does make it seem worse or at the very least adds fuel to the fire. At the same time, it could be reasonable given her contract ends in a couple of months, and any extension could be impacted and delayed. or simply gives her additional time for what could be next, as some opportunities will be probably delayed or completely off the table for the moment.
Thank you for experiencing the Christopher Peter Review, your source for an economic perspective that is completely objective.